welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and I'm doing my Innistrad Crimson Vow retrospective. A little bit overdue. I was going to do it a couple of weeks ago, and we had Jumpstart got dropped on us all of a sudden out of nowhere. And then we got Dominaria Remastered, so I ended up doing a sort of an alternate art video that I've been wanting to do for a little while. I thought that was a good time to do it. I also had my do my second anniversary Band and Commander video, so it sort of got pushed back a little bit. But nevertheless, I like to revisit these sets after about a year. Of course, it's been more than a year now since that set dropped, and just go back, look at, I go to EDH Rec, which is the best database we have for Commander content online. And we can look at, where everything fell into place as far as, the popular cards, the popular commanders and all of that stuff. I find it very interesting. Maybe some people out there do as well. And, let's see if our expectations of certain things were accurate or not. So let's take a look. So here we are. Innistrad Crimson Vow, 16 commanders from this set, and wow, Toxrill the Corrosive, number one. I never would have guessed that, actually. I actually did. When I saw Toxrill, I was like, what an interesting, quirky commander, and I did a video for it, a deck tech for it on my channel because, and I don't usually typically go after the most popular commanders from a set. I go after the ones that I don't think are going to be that popular, so obviously I didn't think Toxrill was going to be that popular. I mean, it's a 7-mana commander, first of all. That's a lot, right? And then on top of that, I thought, okay, well, it's sort of slug tribal, even though it's not really, but I thought that was a little quirky. It's a powerful ability, no question. I think that's what people realized is people started playing with this card and realized how powerful it is in a commander game and how quickly it wipes out your opponent's creatures. And then you're getting all those tokens, and then you can sacrifice the tokens to draw cards. By the way, I will point out this is a Dimir commander. I had a lot of comments about Kibu, right? Kibo from Jumpstart about that being a Gruul commander, which it is. And Toxrill, funny enough, I just had a comment about this guy a few weeks back from someone obviously that was newer at Commander, and they were like, I don't get it. Isn't this a mono black commander? And I'm like, no, that blue pip means that it's also a blue commander. Good to know that people are still watching that deck tech. It actually is one of the most viewed deck techs on my entire channel. Again, because I didn't know this guy was going to be so popular. I didn't think he would. Again, 7 mana is a lot to get your commander out. I actually think Toxrill is probably better in the 99. Fantastic card in the 99, right? If you're looking for as I say all the time, I like abilities stapled on creatures. And if you're looking for a creature that is sort of a board wipe stapled on a creature, there's not a lot of great options. Toxrill is sort of that, right? It's a sort of a board wipe-ish. It's also doing creating tokens and all that. So just a really great card all around that you could probably put in any commander deck. People like it as a commander too, apparently. Over 4,000 decks here. Runo, Stromkirk. I always say Stormkirk, and I just did, literally just did this for one of my patrons. I did a deck doctor for their Runo Stromkirk deck on my Patreon. Feel free to join. The link is below. And was giving them some tips about it. I liked Runo. I knew this would be a popular one, okay? Tribal commanders always are. And from what I've learned, even the tribal commanders that aren't that great tend to be popular. People really like tribal. And it's funny enough, the top 4 commanders here are all tribal. I mean, Toxrill kind of not really is, but it is kind of like I'm looking at this now. And I wasn't expecting this, but frog tribal, vampire tribal, right? Sort of ish, not like I would say Grolnok is not really. And again, this is kind of funny because you look at these 4 commanders at the top here, and they all appear at first glance to be tribal commanders, but they aren't actually, right? Like Toxrill, I would say you could have 0 slugs in your deck very easily. Not really a tribal commander at all. Runo Stromkirk, as I just talked about in the deck doctor that I did, I don't think you need any Leviathans, or like you could have a couple, but you really don't really need any at all, right? Because the copying creature effect is what you want, and there's just not a lot of great. First of all, you have a lot of really, really bad, I'll call them sea creatures because I hate that whole mouthful. and I talked about this when I did my Coma deck as well, where there's not a lot of great ones out there to be shoehorning into your deck. And when I'm doing a tribal theme, I don't want to just shoehorn a bunch of bad creatures into my deck, right? I would rather build around my commander's actual ability, and the ability of creating token copies of your creatures is fantastic. So I would rather copy a Ravenous Chupacabra or a Sad Robot than copy some really bad serpent that just isn't, that is like a 6-mana 5/5 or something. Why do you want to copy that, right? I don't find that to be particularly good. So that's the advice I gave to them, was a little bit more of those value-y good stuff creatures and a little bit less of the really bad serpents. There are a few that definitely fit, though, for sure in this deck. And not surprised at all that this is a popular one. Grolnok, again, whenever a frog you control attacks, mill 3 cards, feels like a frog tribal deck. And there is a fair amount of frogs in Simic colors. And again, I talked about this when this guy came out. I don't think it's that, really at all. You could very easily ignore that first ability and build around, whenever a permanent card is put into your graveyard from your library, exile it with a croak counter on it. You, in no way, shape, or form do you need that first ability to do that. You can attack with your commander and do it, but it's so easy to mill yourself. There's no reason for you to put any frogs in this deck again at all. So again, we have a commander that appears on its face to be frog tribal, but isn't really. You don't need a single frog in this deck. Not one. All you need to do is mill yourself. Having frogs to mill yourself, that's not good at all. Right? Milling yourself is like not typically considered a good thing. The good part of this is those last 2 abilities, right? That's what makes this commander great. And I'm actually curious. Let's see how many people are putting frogs in their decks. Frog Hemoth, great card. Jade Avenger, not so much, right? I would put Frog Hemoth in the deck for sure. That's just a great card you could put in any deck. Spore Frogs, it's a good card. Jade Avenger's not, though. Just a 2/2 with Bushido 2. I don't know if I would shoehorn that into the deck. It's in 55%. I don't think, Omnibian, not bad. Target creature becomes a 3/3 frog until end of turn. You can obviously use that on yourself if you want to mill yourself. More importantly, though, you can use it on your opponent's creatures if they have a big scary creature. Deranged Assistant, we just mill ourselves, right? There's lots of ways to mill yourself. Plaxcaster Frogling, again, that's a pretty good one. Because you can slide that counter over to, say, your commander and help protect it. Man, people are doing Thassa's Oracle in this deck. Jeez, I'm gonna try not to go off on a tangent here, but 55% of these decks are doing Thassa's Oracle. Is this a really high powered deck that people are doing in like CEDH? Because if now I'm just milling myself so I can cast Thassa's Oracle, well, why do you need your commander at all for that? That doesn't. Like, you're just playing a Thassa's Oracle deck now, or a Labman deck, right? Anyway, I'm not going to go off on a tangent here. Again, I like to look at the decline here, right? Of, do you have one commander that is super popular and then everything else not so much? Here, I would say pretty decent distribution, let's call it, right? So we don't have any huge drops. A pretty big drop here. Pretty big drop here again. We're going down almost 1,000 decks each time. So in the top 4 commanders, we go from 4,000 decks down to 1,800. That is a pretty big drop. Olivia Crimson Bride. Yeah, that's about where I expected. Again, another commander that appears tribal, sort of, right? So when Olivia Crimson Bride attacks, return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, tapped and attacking, it gains. When you don't control a legendary vampire, exile this creature. So you're thinking, is like, okay, well, I'm doing legendary vampire tribal. I guess you could put a couple in here. It is neat that if you bring a legendary vampire back from your graveyard, and certainly there are some good ones, that fulfills itself, right? When you don't control a legendary vampire, exile this creature. Well, it is a legend. Like if I have a Baron Singir in here in this deck, that is a legendary vampire. So it's always going to be fulfilling that. So that does work. But again, you don't have to do vampire tribal here at all. And this commander can be a great one. Of course, your Olivia is a legendary creature, right? So I would probably be inclined to protect my Olivia like that. That for me, I'm thinking, okay, I want my commander costs 6. I want to be using its ability all the time. It is certainly a commander that when it comes out is going to be a target. So I would be more inclined to protect my commander and keep it on the field rather than trying to recur other legendary vampires, although there definitely are some that probably would fit in this deck. Tauren's Fist of the Angels is definitely one that wow, I was way off on this one. I thought it was super boring. First of all, I don't like the training ability. I don't think it's very good. It's not very imaginative at all, right? It's a bit of a copy. They're just doing it in reverse, obviously. But the ability, whenever you cast a creature spell, create a 1/1 green and white human soldier creature token with training. Okay. I guess there's the potential to sort of go off. Getting value every time you cast a creature spell is good, but just getting a token is like okay. You know, if I'm doing I create a bunch of tokens and Crater Hoof, go wide strategies, all that stuff, that's been done to death. There's a million commanders out there already doing that. So I'm a little surprised that this is as popular as it is. I know it's really easy to get those tokens. Maybe there's some combo potential here. I think it's a little boring. I was, I remember when the set came out and I saw some people talking about this is one of the best commanders from the set. I was like, wow, really? It's kind of just making tokens, right? So it's not super great. It's okay. Helena and Elena, partners. So again, the obvious comparison here is to Xenagos. Very similar. Probably better, I would say, because you are putting X +1/+1 counters on another target creature. So the buff sticks around. Not only does it stick around, it doesn't go away at the end of turn, but also you're dealing with a +1/+1 counter theme here as well. So now you can do all that stuff, right? So that's also pretty great. Also, X is Helena and Elena's power. So you can, fiddle with that a little bit. Stick a Hammer of Nazan on your commander. So now it's not so easy to get off the table. Also bumps the power. So you're getting more counters. Pretty great commander. Aruth, Tormented Prophet. This is one that I was very curious how popular it would be. And I know Mitch from Commander's Quarters loved this one. This is like his favorite commander from the set. He thought it was very unique and interesting. So funny enough, I just did a deck doctor for one of my patrons a little while ago, and they had an Octavia deck that was a self-mill strategy, and they were going to win with Thassa's Oracle or Labman or whatever. And I thought, and they did a whole lot of self-mill and all that kind of stuff, and I thought, I don't know if Octavia is the right fit there. I know Octavia wants you to have stuff in your graveyard, but Aruth seems like a perfect fit for that strategy if that's what you're trying to do, because you want it. I mean, it's very easy to draw cards, and whenever you're doing that, your commander is milling you or exiling, right? So it's same thing. It's all working in that strategy, and then on top of that, you get to use the red impulse draw effects on top of that. So that's what I recommended to them, and I imagine that's probably what a lot of people are doing here, right? I think I mean it's a really neat commander. By the way, Crumbling Sanctuary absolutely goes in this deck. If I think that's the recommendation. Like if you're self-milling, Crumbling Sanctuary. So I'm interested to see if anybody has it. I don't see. Oh, there's Thassa's Oracle Labman. Okay, so yeah, there is a lot of people. About a third of the decks are doing that. Let's go down to utility artifacts. Does anyone have Crumbling Sanctuary? I don't see it. I think it's a phenomenal fit. And now everyone's probably wondering what that card does, so I'll look it up here real quick. For each 1 damage that would be dealt to a player, that player exiles the top card of their library instead. So you don't take damage. Instead, it's just a phenomenal card if you have a Thassa's Oracle win. It's in Umbris and Phoenix decks, apparently, and not really much else. I think it's a great fit in Aerith deck, or any deck where you maybe have a Labman or Thassa's Oracle win con. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Let's move on here. Angie Maid of Dishonor, and I've always thought, I'll just say this card really cracked me up when I first saw it. Okay, because Maid, I know it's a play on words, Maid of Honor. But when I first saw it, maid, like what does a maid do? A maid cleans up a room. And you're looking at this picture and it looks like a really dirty room. So I'm like, Angie's, whose maid is that? Angie is someone's maid? And she's the maid of Dishonor because she sucks at her job because the room's really dirty. So that's sort of where my mind went immediately, which is kind of funny. I'm like, okay, she's somebody's maid, like she's cleaning up the room, and she's a maid of Dishonor because she sucks at her job and the room's all dirty. But then I was like, oh, I see. I mean, obviously there was a wedding theme in this set, right? So as we see with the next card, Edgar Charmed Groom, right? So as we see again, if you look at the drop off, the order in which these cards are in, that matters. But at the same time, you got to look at the numbers. Like Torrent's 1,500, 1,300, 1,200, and then we got a big drop off here. This is actually even more popular than I thought it would be. I did not think this was going to be a popular one. I didn't love the blood tokens at first. Again, it's a little bit of a, you're just sort of copying something that's been done before. However, then I started to think, okay, well, blood tokens are doing the discard theme. And there's a whole bunch of discard support in black and red, a lot of really great discard support in Rakdos colors. Whenever Angie and or one or more other vampires enter the battlefield under your control, create a blood token. Ugh. So now you got to do vampire tribal as well. However, there is a little bit of support with vampires and discarding. Like they did the whole madness thing. I can't remember what set that it was, but they did the madness thing with vampires. So that I think works really good here. Is you're doing the discard theme, and then also you're doing the vampire theme combined. That's pretty interesting. Still more popular than I thought it would be. Edgar Charm Groom, I just thought was awful. I can't believe there's this many. Like I look at some of the commanders that is more popular than 3 in particular that I think are really interesting, neat commanders, and Edgar doesn't seem very like. Other vampires you control get +1/+1, which I say all the time is the lamest tribal anything that you can do. There's nothing more lame than just giving your team an anthem. Boring, right? When he dies, return to the battlefield transformed. That's kind of interesting, having a commander with a transform dice trigger like that. But then the backside's not great either. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white and black vampire creature token with lifelink and put a bloodline counter on Edgar. Then if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. I mean, if you're doing black and white vampire tribal, there's better options, obviously. But, just because there's better options doesn't mean, for me, I'm not necessarily, oh, well, these commanders are terrible. Why are people playing them? I'm surprised when people play them, right? There are commanders that I think are really good that are interesting build arounds, but then there's other commanders that I'm like, okay, well, I don't think it's very interesting, and I don't think anyone else is going to think it's interesting either. So it surprises me that it's popular. Edgar is definitely one that it surprises me how popular it is, because I thought it'd be right at the bottom. I mean, you play your commander, gives an anthem to your team, which is meh. Then you want your commander to die, and then it becomes transformed. You get nothing out of it until the beginning of your upkeep, where it just creates a 1/1 token. And you're not getting the anthem because your commander is on the backside, so you're not even getting the anthem anymore. And then, so you create a couple tokens. Then if there are 3 or more bloodline counters on it, remove those counters and transform it. So you're going to create, 3 tokens and then transform your commander. Now you've jumped through all those hoops. It's taken you like 4 turns to just have a couple of 1/1 tokens in play. And now that you're now giving an anthem to, that just seems very slow and tedious and not very good. And I'm surprised how popular this guy is. Jacob Hauken Inspector is one that I thought for sure would be way more popular. I mean, it's close. Man, this guy's less popular than Edgar even. I just thought there were, like, draw a card, then exile a card from your hand face down. Any card from your hand. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. You may pay 6 mana if you do transform. So you want to, you can, as much as you want, just sit here using your commander's ability. Draw and exile, and there's a lot you can do there. Putting a bunch of stuff in exile. Then at any point, you can just pay to 6 and transform your commander. And I know people probably don't love that because, your opponents can respond and kill it, and that's been wasted. And I guess, okay, I guess so. 6 is kind of a lot. But the backside, man, at the beginning of your upkeep, exile top card of your library face down. You may look at that card for as long as it remains exiled. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost. Seems pretty good, right? You don't have to do much, omniscience, or something. Maybe that doesn't sound super fun. Maybe that's what it is. What's that commander from? Oh man, I've totally forgotten. The Strixhaven commander there, the blue-green one that casts stuff for free. And I thought it would be super popular and wasn't really. And Jadzi, is that it? I mean, it's funny. I've never played. I think I played against that commander once, like a year ago, against one of my patrons. That's about it. I almost never see that commander. I thought it would be a really popular one because it's powerful. It has this ability of casting giant things for free like this guy does. Maybe people just don't love that as much as I thought they did. That's one of those things where I'm like, okay, well, who doesn't love casting an Ulamog for free? But maybe people just don't really like doing that in a commander game. Maybe it's not as, it used to be something people love doing, maybe not so much anymore. So maybe I'm just off about that analysis of commander players. Maybe they don't love that whole I cast giant things for free as much as, because I don't love it. That's not really something that I love doing. Again, this is one I thought would be popular because of what it's doing, not because I thought it was great. Geralf is definitely one that I thought would be more popular, and I think this is a fantastic commander. I had this way up at the top of my list for the best commanders from the set. I guess I'm not that surprised it's unpopular. Again, I think that people are making the mistake of thinking this is zombie tribal, and it's not at all, right? And again, we'll give it a click. Let's take a look. How many zombies are in here, right? There should be like none. I don't think. This is not a zombie tribal commander. It is there's a great fit, Cherix, right? It's a toughness matters. Sacrifice another zombie, create 2 tokens that are copies of the sacrificed creature. That works because you are making zombie tokens that you can sacrifice and then make more. So that actually does work. But yeah, toughness, like Aegis Turtle. There's a card that is a phenomenal fit in this deck because it's a 1 mana, essentially becomes a 5/5 flying creature. Pretty great, right? Creates an XX blue zombie creature token where X is the sacrificed creature's toughness. I mean, there's just so many neat cards. I have a patron with this deck that, again, I did a deck doctor for, and there's just so many neat cards that fit in here. And again, I'm looking for a specific card that they put in their deck that is just a fantastic fit. There it is, Kalfner's Urn. So people are playing it. Just a really I mentioned this card in my 10 cards videos. Very unique, interesting card where, it's looking for toughness. It's a toughness matters card. What a phenomenal fit in this deck, right? Because you're sacrificing your toughness matters creatures anyway, and then you get them all back. Super fantastic fit in the deck. I think it's a great commander that you can do a lot of interesting, neat things with. 473 is not bad. It's sort of middle of the road, I guess. I mean, Old Rutstein, there's, again, another commander where I was like, that is such an underwhelming ability. And I did this guy on my Underwhelming Commander series. My advice to people building this deck is you build around, I want treasure tokens, or I want insect tokens, or I want blood tokens. Pick one. Don't just do the random, let's see what I get. I would build around one of them. I'm planning on getting insect tokens, or I'm planning on getting blood tokens, or whatever. I think I went with the insect token one. So we did sort of an insect tribal there. Obviously, that new insect commander would be a phenomenal fit in that deck if you ended up making it. Odric Bloodcursed. Again, another one that, like, I thought Old Redstein, Odric, and Edgar, I thought were all super underwhelming, and I thought would be right at the bottom. I will again say Odric is a little bit, and I think I talked about this in one of my videos about commanders that I was wrong about or that surprised me. What I didn't love about this commander is he has no abilities himself. Not even first strike. Like, why not just give the guy first strike so that when he enters the battlefield, at least he's looking at his own ability and you get at least 1 blood token. He does literal nothing if you don't have any other creatures in play, right? Because he's looking for the abilities on your creatures, and he doesn't have any. So if you have no other creatures with abilities, he does literal nothing, which kind of sucks, right? However, I played against a patron who had this deck. He ended up winning that game, and I was like, oh, kind of impressed there. Again, the blood token thing, I wasn't super impressed with those. So creating all those blood tokens, I was like, eh. But you can do the discard theme there, which there's less in Boros, but still some interesting things you can do there. You could do like Reckless Fireweaver, where you're having artifacts enter right. You're doing the artifact token theme. There's a lot of neat things you can do there. So that's pretty interesting. And, he made it. What he did is, I'm not going to play my commander right away. I'm going to wait till I have a bunch of stuff out. Like I got my Chrome out or something. Then I cast my commander way later in the game, to sort of help close out the game. And it was a pretty interesting deck. I was kind of impressed. Catilda, Dawnheart Martyr. Yeah, it's about where I expected. I thought probably these 3 would be at the bottom, and then this would be 4th from the bottom. Flying, lifelink protection from vampires. Okay. Power and toughness equal the number of permanents you control that are spirits and or enchantments. Very weird combination there. I guess you could do spirit tribal or enchantment tribal, or a combination of both, which is kind of neat. I think having Disturb on your commander is neat. Of course, I have a Denic deck, which has Disturb. Pull from Eternity is an absolute must in this deck, of course, because with these Disturb commanders, you get the backside, and then the backside says if it would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So you let it go to exile, you pull from Eternity, put it back in your graveyard, which is where you want it, because of course you could disturb from your graveyard. So great fit there. The backside, I couldn't even tell you what this does. This is a commander that I didn't give much of a look at, to be honest. Enchanted creature has flying, lifelink, protection from vampires, and gets +X for X the number. Okay, so it's just imbuing. It's basically bestow, right? Your commander is essentially bestow, right? That's what it is. You're either getting the creature or you're getting the enchantment, and the enchantment does what the creature does. So I guess it would be interesting to put creatures in here that you want to be giving all those abilities to. Can't think of too many great ones. I mean, creatures with double strike. I imagine there's going to be a few creatures with double strike in this deck that you want to give all those abilities to, which would be good. Still, it's a little boring. It's about where I expected. Henrika Domnathi I thought was great. I did this on my channel as well. I think I did 3. So I did Toxrill. I did a Toxrill deck tech, and Gerelf, and Henrika Domnathi. As soon as I saw this, I thought, well, this is really interesting. It is, and again, I think people look at the backside and go, okay, well, each creature you control a flying death. So it's Death Touch flying, lifelink tribal, which is kind of boring. And I agree that is a little boring. And it's not a great, again, giving that +1/+0 and having to pay 3 for it, not great. I absolutely agree. That's not a great tribal aspect. So that's why you don't build around that. That's just a nice little added bonus. You can use that ability on your commander, because of course your commander has flying, death touch, and lifelink, which is a great combination of abilities. So that could just be used to pump your commander. I'm more interested in the front side, and I did mostly a sacrifice tribal here. Each player sacrificing a creature, and obviously drawing a card, losing a life is great. More so, what I want to do with this commander is keep getting the front side back. You want the front side back as much as you possibly can, right? What you can do here, there's a number of things you can do. You can blink your commander, even though in black there's not a lot of ways to do that. There are a few, so that you keep getting the front side over and over. Another thing you can do is recursion. So what you do is you draw a card and lose a life, and then at the beginning of the next combat, of course, you have to choose something different. So you choose each player sacrifices a creature, and you sacrifice your Henrika so that you don't have to transform it. So you send your Henrika to the graveyard, and then you just get it back out of the graveyard. So for me, I'm thinking that's a pretty neat fit or a neat direction to go with this commander. Really unpopular one. I thought it was pretty good. Dorothea, or Dorothea, however you want to say it, Vengeful Victim. Yeah, I guess I'm not surprised this is at the bottom. It is a tough one. I thought the really interesting way to go, again, Assault Suit, fantastic fit here. This is, again, and I have another patron that I played against their Dorothea deck that is doing exactly that. They have a Dorothea deck that is not flipping it over at all. It's only playing the flip side, the front side, because a 4/4 flyer for 2 mana is phenomenal, obviously. You can put Assault Suit on it. It won't be sacrificed. You can blink it. That's what he did. He has a lot of blink effects in the deck. So what you do is you attack with your Dorothea, you connect for 4, and then sacrifice at the end of combat. So before it gets sacrificed, you blink it. When it comes back into play, you no longer have to sacrifice it, right? So he put an interesting deck together there. I get it. It's not great. Oh, I did this on my channel as well. I did a deck tech for Dorothea because I had a few interesting ideas there. So I did 1, 2, 3. I did 4. It's interesting that I did the most popular commander from the set and also the least popular. Again, this set I was probably way off for as far as popularity goes. Like, there's no way I thought Toxrill was going to be number 1. Runo doesn't surprise me. Grolnok, like the rest of these, Torrens surprises me. Ruth, I think, surprises me a little. Although that one I really wasn't sure how popular it would be. This Angie surprises me. Edgar surprises me. Jacob surprises me. Geralf surprises me. Old Rutstein surprises me. Odric surprises me. Like, these guys, more, like, I would say less popular, more popular is what I thought. More popular, less popular, less popular, even though they're already towards the bottom. But I'm surprised they even have 400 decks. That seems about right. More popular, and I guess that seems about right. So this one I was way off. It's a really interesting set when you look at the diverse combination of commanders we have here. We're really all over the place. It's interesting. All right, let's look at the 99 cards. So we have these lands. Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands, which is good in Commander. These are really, I'm not surprised these are super popular because in Commander these are really good dual lands. I think I have a couple. I have Sundown Pass, I think, in my Boros deck. I think I have a couple of these maybe. Because in Commander, having that, like in other formats, you don't want your turn one land to enter the battlefield tapped because you probably want to do something on turn one. In Commander, you don't really care. So now it enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. So now you want to have 2 lands in play. I play my Shattered Sanctum, and on turn 3 it enters the battlefield untapped, and I'm almost certainly going to be doing something on turn 3, right? There's another cycle of lands that came out, I think, in Kaladesh that are the opposite, that enter the battlefield tapped if you control more than 2 lands, and you almost never see them in Commander because you don't want that. You don't want to play a land on turn 5 and it enters the battlefield tapped. In Modern, those lands are way more popular and they're a lot better because you want them entering the battlefield early untapped. In Commander, you're more going long game. You want to be casting those big spells. On turn 1, you might probably not want to do anything at all. That's why I love the Temple series, Temple of, Enlightenment, etc., etc. Because that to me, I love that as a first turn play. Those lands, I play them on turn 1. I get to scry, put something on the bottom if I don't want to see it for a long time, and I don't care if it enters the battlefield tapped on turn 1 because I probably won't be casting anything on turn 1 anyway. So these are really good lands. That's why, obviously, and they are the enemy colors, which, of course, the enemy color pairings don't have as much support as the allied color pairings. So that's why I think they are certainly the most popular ones from the deck. Hullbreaker Horror came out in this set. That's right. Yeah. No shock there. That this card is phenomenal. In fact, this is so good. It's starting to feel like Cyclonic Rift, where it's like, okay, this card is so powerful. I immediately put this card into both my mono blue decks. I have 2 mono blue decks. I put this into both of them. I have a tendency to not put win cons in my deck. I'm more concerned with how my deck is synergizing than how I'm going to win the game. And I thought, okay, well, here we go. This is a great win con for both of those decks because not only is it going to help control what my opponents are doing and stop them from winning the game, but it's also a big beefy creature that I can smack my opponents with. It's a really busted card in a Commander game, no question. It's super powerful. And it's becoming sort of like Cyclonic Rift a little bit, where people are getting a little annoyed by it. So I don't know. I still have it in those decks, but it certainly is a card that people are starting to not like. Welcoming Vampire, of course. I thought there was a huge overreaction. I see here it's only in 5% of decks that it can be in. I think people overreacted a little bit. I actually heard the guys on the command zone saying this is like one of the best white cards we've gotten in forever. I'm like, okay, guys, relax. It only draws 1 card per turn, and there's a big stipulation there. It's only once per turn. It's only a creature power 2 or less. And it is good. I do have this in one deck. I believe I have this in my Denic deck, and it's a pretty good fit. I don't have it in any of my mono white decks, though. Not a good fit there. This one has already been trumped, I think, by Takassia's Welcome. Takassia's Welcome probably is better than Welcoming Vampire in 90% of decks because you don't care as much now about power. It's about mana cost, and mana cost, if you have a creature with power 2 or less, it's probably assuredly going to be mana value 3 or less already. So you're already fulfilling the part that Welcoming Vampire fulfills, like tokens, for example. And then on top of that, any creature, for which there are a lot, that are mana value 3 or less but have a power greater than 2. There's a bunch, Commanders included, right? So I think Takassia's Welcome is already better than this card. It is a creature, though, so there is that. That being said, though, sometimes having an ability stable on a creature can be bad if you want that ability to stay in play, because obviously creatures get removed a lot easier than enchantments. Wash Away, this is a total miss for me, okay? Because when I saw Wash Away, I thought, counter target spell that wasn't cast from its owner's hand. I'm like, oh, that's okay. I guess you can use it in fringe scenarios, but usually you're going to be casting it for 3. What I totally missed about this card is you can counter people's commanders with it, because commanders aren't cast from hands. So when I initially saw this card, I evaluated it incorrectly. I didn't think it was great, and I didn't think it was going to see a lot of play because I didn't realize it counters people's commanders. Now, that being said, I don't love countering people's commanders, and this is a card that I threw in a couple of decks, and as soon as an offer you can't refuse came out, that it went to the wayside. This is a card that I never use now because there's just way better options. An offer you can't refuse to me is way better than this, because I don't want to counter someone's commander. I never do. I never counter my opponent's commander. I get that if your opponent's playing Najeela or Urza or some super busted commander that probably shouldn't be played in a casual game, you want to counter it before it hits the table, but usually countering your opponent's commander just buys you a turn or 2. I would much rather counter an Expropriate or Craterhoof or something that is just going to end the game Aetherflux Reservoir that they're likely not going to get back. I mean, yeah, they can. They can possibly get it back out of the graveyard, but likely when you counter your opponent's big splashy spell, you're never going to have to worry about it again. So that's my preference. Countering people's commanders isn't. So if I'm not countering my opponent's commander, Wash Away is not great. I mean, I guess obviously there's other options. Maybe it works great against a Prosper deck because they're casting stuff from exile a lot. But it's a card that I used a little bit, and then I found I don't think I ever cast this for 1 mana. It was always cast for 3. And if that's the case, there's just way better options. Cultivator Colossus, shockingly, is in... I mean, it's only in 3% of decks. I mean, it gets played in land decks. That's the only place I would imagine you'd play it. This card, I don't even recognize, which is funny. This is... So maybe this is a card I was wrong about. Dig Up, 1 green mana sorcery. I don't love the cleave ability, I'll just say that. Didn't love the cleave ability at all. Search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. So for 1 green mana, okay, that's all right. I don't know if you're in a green deck. Putting a card in your hand a land in your hand is not good for a green deck. So if you cast it for 1 black, and a green, you search your library for a card and put it into your hand. So it's a Diabolic Tutor, a bad Diabolic Tutor because you need green mana as well. This card's not very good. Why are people playing this card? Again, this is like Damn. Where it's okay, it gets to do these 2 different things. So no matter what the situation, you're getting something good. Yeah, but it's doing 2 things badly, right? Which is why I don't like Damn. Damn, you get to exile a creature or destroy a creature. Sorry, it's not exile. Or you get to exile, or you get to destroy all creatures. Okay, versatile. Yay, right? But it's doing 2 things poorly. There are way better board wipes in the format than Damn, in my opinion. And there is certainly way, way better targeted removal than Damn. So it's doing 2 things poorly. This is doing 2 things poorly. If you use it for the 1 green mana, you get to search your library for a basic land card and put it into your hand. Why would anybody... There are already cards that do that. Why would you ever want to do that in a commander game? That's not good. I would much rather have a actual ramp spell. In a heartbeat, I would replace this card with a Rampant Growth or a Nature's Lore or whatever. In a heartbeat. Okay? The cleave part, 4 mana, I go Tutor... is a Diabolic Tutor, which is a card that is gone to the way. Nobody uses that anymore. That's not a good tutor. I mean, it's okay, not great. I think there's better options. I mean, certainly there are better options, and I realize they're expensive. I should clarify. I'm not saying, just use a Vampiric Tutor or a Demonic Tutor. Obviously, I'm not that guy. Increasing Ambition is a card I would use over this if I'm looking for a tutor. I love Increasing Ambition because 5 mana I tutor isn't great, but later in the game, I can't count how many times I've used that card later in a game when things are getting real sticky. It's coming down to the wire, and now I get to pay 9 mana and go tutor for 2 cards, and I get my, something that's going to help me win the game and also something that's going to destroy my opponent's permanent that's on the table that I need to get rid of or solve some problem I have. I like that card a lot. I would play it over this, even though they seem like they're nothing alike. I think you're almost always just going to be cleaving this and essentially casting a Diabolic Tutor, which is not great. I'm surprised this is one of the most popular cards from the set. Again, another card I have no idea what this does. Kessig Flame Breather. When you cast a non-creature spell, it deals 1. Okay, so it's just another electrostatic field or something, or Gutter Snipe or one of those effects. So, okay, it goes in those decks. Toxrill, of course, like I said, fantastic in the 99. So it's in the 99 of a lot of decks, no big surprise there. Reckless Impulse. There's a top 2, just a really boring, not great impulse draw card that, maybe this was in precons or something. By the way, I have to look at those yet, so I should probably move on. What is this guy? Mirror Hall Mimic. Copy of any creature on the battlefield except it's a spirit and it has Disturb, and at the beginning of... that's pretty neat, actually. So you can enchant a creature, and at the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. That's a neat effect. That's not bad. Yeah, neat card. Overcharged Amalgam is a card that I absolutely love. Maybe I was a little too high on this. I actually only have this in 1 deck currently, I think. Again, I've taken it out a couple decks. I put it into a bunch of decks, and then I kind of took it out because I was like, okay, it's kind of better. Again, an offer you can't refuse. 99% of the time, I'd rather just have a 1 mana counterspell than this guy. This is a 4 mana counterspell. Usually he'll end up exploiting himself. I like the counter target activator triggered ability thing as well. I like that all stapled on one creature. I think this is a really great card. It just didn't fit really well in a lot of my decks, so I only have it in one deck currently. It is a good card. Just maybe I overreacted a little on how good this card is, because I have taken it out of a couple of decks. All right, let's look at Crimson Vow Commander quickly before we end this video. And we have 2 partner pairings. Both of them are not very good. I'm not like even like Rhoda and Timon. I'm surprised there's 700 decks. That's actually way more than I thought there would be. They're precons though. Precons are always going to get a lot more love than everything else, obviously. I actually thought Camber and Loreen were the more interesting pairing here. Again, you can do the, like I have a patron with a Camber partner without deck. They did my partner without idea, and they just have mono black Camber the Plunderer. And that ability, whenever a creature an opponent controls dies, you gain 1 life and create a blood token, is pretty darn good. You can do the life gain theme. You obviously want your opponent's creatures to die, which is always good. You're doing the blood token thing, which again is better than I originally thought, because now you can do the discard theme as well. The Camber is the build around here. Loreen is just a nice little added bonus where, okay, I can goad my opponent's creatures if they have a Blightsteel Colossus or something. I think this pairing is better than Rhoda and Timon. But again, neither of them are super popular. I don't think too many people were excited about these as the precons. They were like, really? Those are the precons? Not great. We also have the non-partner ones, of course, which were way more popular. Millicent, no big surprise there. Over 4. This is about the same as Toxrill, most popular commander from the set, because of course you're doing the Spirit Tribal thing, which everyone was looking for a great Azorius Spirit Tribal commander. And then also it just has this really great ability of whenever another non-token spirit you control dies or deals combat damage to a player, create a spirit token. So that's a fantastic ability that you can, again, it's 7 mana. So it's kind of funny that the 2 most popular commanders from this set are both 7 mana commanders. But once you get them out, again, I've played against a Patron's Millicent deck. It was really, really good. So it's worth what you're paying for. Umbrus is another one that, man, I did this on my channel too. I did an Exile Tribal, except I think, was it a building janky decks thing? Because I took one of my janky deck ideas of Surgical Extraction. I search my opponent's library for cards and exile them and get rid of all their best cards. I did that, and I thought that was a good fit with Umbrus. So that's the route that I took with it. There's probably better routes you can go. This is this would be the 3rd most popular commander from the set. So this is another one that I did on my channel because I didn't think it was going to be that popular, and it ended up being way more popular than I thought it would. Strefan, again, another. Was this the precon? Maybe this was the precon. I don't know what the actual precon commanders were. Maybe it was Strefan, because this one I was like, wow, that's way more popular than I thought it would be. Didn't think this guy was super great. I think a lot of people didn't as well. 3,400, that's a lot. So maybe this was the precon commander. Was it Millicent? Was it Millicent and Strefan? That might be the case. I don't actually know, but so obviously that's going to affect the numbers here. Donald, I thought was a very interesting one. This one I think I did on my Underwhelming Commander series. Again, massive, like you have to look, and people go, oh, well, that's the 4th most popular commander. You have to look at the numbers here. We're going from 3,400, massive drop off of almost 3,000 to 584. That's a massive drop off. But this is a really interesting commander. I think the copy spell thing is an interesting fit that you can do here. I like the flash idea. I'm pretty sure I did this on my Underwhelming Commander series. So you can check that out if you want some ideas there. I like the idea because it triggers only once each turn, right? Or do this only once each turn. So creatures with flash, which in blue there are quite a few with flying, as a coincidence, that's I immediately a bunch popped into my head. You can even do, even though you're making spirits, you could easily do fairy tribal here, because fairies of course all have flying and a lot of them have flash. So that's a great fit here. So this is a really neat, this is one that I was considering going after, but I already had 2 mono blue decks and I didn't really want another one because I thought there was a lot of neat interactions you could work with here. Timothar, Baron of Bats. This is one that I saw a lot of people going, oh wow, it's so good. Again, a couple of channels I saw that thought this is one of the best commanders from the set, and I was like, really? I disagree, and obviously people agree with me because I don't think this guy's very good at all. 6 mana is a lot for a commander, and again, if I'm getting Millicent type of abilities or Toxrill type of abilities for my mana, that's fine, but I'm not getting that at all. Whenever another non-token vampire you control dies, you may pay 1 and exile it. If you do, create a 1/1 black bat creature token. So now I have to do Vampire Tribal, and I'm paying 6 mana for my commander. I have to hold that mana open. How much am I going to get off of? I mean, and I know it has a ward discard a card, but that's not. My opponents really want to get my commander off the battlefield. It's not going to be hard for them to do so. I didn't think there was a big payoff there for what the 6 mana that you were paying. And then also you're in mono black Vampire Tribal. There's a lot of better vampire commanders than that, right? So yeah, I'm not surprised at all that this isn't very popular. And then we just have the partner without, which is interesting. Some people are actually doing that, right? 9 people out there do have a partner without Camber deck, apparently. Let's quickly look at some of the cards that are popular from here, and a couple I very much recognize because I thought they were great, and a couple I totally missed. Again, Olivia's Wrath is the most popular kind of, sort of, and I have no idea what it does. Oh, each non-vampire creature. Okay, so it's just a vampire tribal card. So, of course, it's going to go in the vampire decks. Wedding Ring is one that got a little bit of buzz because this was still in the era, sort of white needs help drawing cards. And very quickly, this card completely fell off. I'm surprised it's in 9,000 decks. It does the politics thing if you're doing that, but this fell off of the face of the earth pretty quickly because right after this, we got some great card draw for white in Neon Dynasty, and then we got a whole bunch more in New Capenna, and then we got a whole bunch more in Baldur's Gate. So this card is, I'm surprised it's in 9,000 decks. It's pretty much obsolete as far as I'm concerned, as far as if you're looking for white card draw. This is one I was sort of on the fence about when it came out, and then by the time the next set come out, it's already been right. So you have to be careful with your white card draw and ramp now because they're always coming out with better white card draw and ramp for white. Still, they're doing that. So with the very next set, these cards are getting trumped by the next thing. So you have to be careful running out and buying these cards because this card to me is like not very good at all. Right? It was sort of like it might have been an honorable mention for me when I reviewed the set. Now it's like almost unplayable unless you're doing specifically this theme, right? Ethereal Investigator is a good one. You could almost put this in any deck. It enters the battlefield and you investigate X times where X is the number of opponents you have. So you have a creature with a really nice ETB. If you have 3 opponents, it's going to ETB and give you 3 clue tokens. That on its own, I think is pretty good, right? But then if you're in a draw a second card each turn deck, which a lot of people are doing, it's a great fit because it's going to make you spirit tokens, but also you can obviously just crack those clue tokens on your turn and then exchange them and make a spirit token as well. Just a really great value-y creature. I love creatures like this. I have this guy, I think I might only have him in one deck. 1 or 2, I'm not sure, but I just love creatures like this. Just giving you lots of great value because it's doing Spirit Tribal, it fits in all those decks. Because it's doing an Investigate theme, it fits in all those decks. Really great card. I'm actually surprised it's not in more decks. I love Shadowgrange Archfiend. Again, all those black. I talked about black discard. There's a lot of great black discard support. This is one. 3 mana for an 8/4 that when it enters the battlefield, each opponent sacrifices a creature with its greatest power. Is phenomenal if you can discard it. You got to pay 8 life, but then you gain life equal to the greatest power among creatures sacrificed this way. So if your opponent sacrifices a creature with power of 8, you gain all the life back. So you're not out anything. You just paid 3 mana for an 8/4 and got rid of your opponent's best creatures. Even if you only gain a little bit of the life back, I think it's still fantastic. Great card. If I'm in any black deck that is doing any sort of discard at all, I'm putting that guy in there. And Disorder in the Court, another card that I sort of was like, and then I realized, hey, it's actually pretty good because, of course, you're exiling X target creatures. And the great thing about that is you can hit your opponent's creatures. So you can use this as a blink strategy to blink my opponent's creatures, or I can use it to get my opponent's creatures off the table for whatever reason temporarily, right? You're also investigating X times, right? So you're getting that added bonus. Return the exiled cards to a battlefield tapped under their owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So my opponent's about to attack me, that Blightsteel Colossus. Worst case scenario, I can pay 3 mana, exile it, blink it so it doesn't kill me, and I'll get a clue token for my trouble as well. So a really versatile, great card. I ended up putting this in my Denic deck just because it does investigate, which fits what I'm doing in that deck, but also I like the versatility of it. It's sort of like Vanish into Memory that way, where you can use it in a lot of different ways. Yeah, and then we'll end here because this video is going really long. We got another Vampire Tribal card. Glasscast Heart is a pretty good one. Again, Vampire Tribal. Storm of Souls is a really good card. I ended up putting this in my Gerard deck because it fits the sort of graveyard recursion theme that I'm doing there. I have a lot of ETB creatures, which is what's great. You know, this card's making your creatures a bunch of 1/1s, but if you're in an ETB strategy, blink strategy, you're getting all those ETBs, right? These cards are actually coming into play. That's the thing. You look at this card and you think, okay, I'm creating 1/1 spirit creature tokens. No, you're actually physically bringing those cards, those creature cards, from your graveyard and putting them onto the battlefield. This is not a token theme. You're actually putting those cards onto the battlefield. They just happen to be 1/1s instead of whatever their power and toughness was before, and they have flying. So pretty great card that could fit in a lot of decks for sure. So I'm going to end there. This video's going really long. That is my review, my retrospective. So my review, in hindsight, as it were, of Innistrad Crimson Vow. I thought it was a pretty great set overall for Commander, but man, it's one of those sets that I was way off about. There are certain sets that I was pretty good with my evaluation initially. I would say Crimson Vow is up there with one of the sets that, as far as how popular I thought the Commanders would be, or certain cards that I missed, I was kind of a fair off about this set, I would say for sure. So let me know in the comments below what you guys were most surprised about when it comes to this set, looking back at it after a year. But that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.